Hey, Nick.
Omen. So we have some news.
This is groundbreaking.
I alluded to this on the Instagram last week as of recording. We are starting a Patreon.
What?
Or more accurately, we have started a Patreon.
Nick, that is super exciting. You know, that's something that we talked about in ages past, and we were like, oh, well, it doesn't really make sense. And now it does.
I think it does make sense, yeah. It is patreon.com/Talk Tull to me, as you would expect.
Easy to remember, yeah.
We currently have 2 membership levels.
And Nick, I have looked at some Patreons that are out there, and I want to just observe that our Patreon is by far one of the least expensive Patreons that exist.
Just you wait, Omen. So we currently have 2 levels. We have, for $1 a month, you can give us some love and gain access to patron-only posts and messages and the occasional poll that we might do.
That's right.
And we are opening a suggestion box that you will be able to communicate with us in terms of providing suggestions to further tiers, further benefits for Patreons, things along those lines.
Other feckless content that you might want to see. And more probably here.
More accurately here. Who knows? We could do a video component if we get enough subscribers. Hey. Who knows? And then on top of that, if you want to do $5 a month, you get all of that plus access to Outtake Tull to me and Talk Tull with me. You may be asking yourself...
You may be screaming into the darkness, why?
Because we are ostensibly doing 3 podcasts now instead of the 1. So we thought we've got enough fans... We've put in enough time that we have enough content now that we can offer that as bonus content, as paid bonus content.
That's right. And you know, Nick, the fact that it's 3 different discrete segments makes it more work for me, but in a more realistic and more accurate way, more work for you, because you are the one who does all of the editing and hosting and releasing of this content.
Yes, it is more work for me, and $5 a month is a drop in the bucket to pay for the hosting and the time that it takes. So I would just like to see if we can get some love and some appreciation.
It'll also give us the flexibility that if we hit certain financial goals, and we can talk about more of this in the suggestion box option.
That's right.
But if we hit a certain goal, we might be able to release some fun Feckless Moans swag.
Oh, my goodness.
And how much more satisfying would it be to listen to Talk Tull to me while wearing a Talk Tull to me codpiece?
Just the codpiece.
Nothing else.
So that's the big news. Thank you for your future support. Thank you for your continued support.
And one thing that I want to make clear that won't ever change, Nick, is that the core podcast that we started with, Talk Tull to me, will and forever be a free content nugget.
That is absolutely true. Access to Outtake Tull to me and Talk Tull with me will start in Patreon starting in April. I just want to mention a very quick and grateful shout out to the artist, also a fan listener. Thank you, Nick, in Alaska.
Wait a minute, Nick, is this a different Nick to the one that you are?
This is, in fact, a different Nick. He spells his name Nick. The traditional Nick. He is Marooned Beard, who left us a review. He is also Creepworks.
What?
Which, you can find a couple of links to Creepworks in the info on the Patreon page. But he has amazingly and graciously agreed to let us use his skeleton Ian Anderson playing the flute that he has drawn up.
Which, if you haven't seen, you probably have by now. But also, if you haven't checked out his work, go check it out. He's an incredible artist, very cool aesthetic.
Yeah.
And buy $1 million worth of his merchandise.
Please. So that's it. That's Patreon. Thank you. This was not as smooth of a reveal as I would have liked it to be, but yeah, we started a Patreon. Thank you so much for joining us, and we love you, our sweet, sweet listeners.
Gassers and dragsters, adjust the mix from your nitro tank. Build up the pressure in your turbocharger and leave a smoking streak of rubber on the quarter mile.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
Welcome back. I am Omen Said.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together, we are the finely oiled machine that is Feckless Momes.
And this is the line that you drive over so that you win. Talk Tull to me.
An unregulated weekend of drag racing in the dry riverbed of Prog Rock, in which Nick and I, all hyped up with nowhere particular to go, do burnouts in the Anderson Mobile. Leather jacket collars popped, hair greased back, we will road test each and every song ever released by seminal rock band Jethro Tull. We will marvel at the luxurious vinyl seats, stare at our own reflections in the polished chrome, and take a long and lustful look under the bonnet. Nick will stir the gearbox of musical analysis while Omen presses the clutch of metaphor and the gas of poetry. Will we blow a musical piston? Will our conjecture coolant overheat? Can we break before we hit the deadly cliff of the synth period? Let's find out in... I'm all done.
Oh, is that it? Find out in what?
Talk Tull to me.
Oh,
in this episode of Talk Tull to me.
Goodness me. Omen, that was analogous and metaphorical and just overall up to snuff.
You've got to give me a
standards.
word limit. Otherwise,
I know. Yeah, it's like you're a reporter. You need structure. Otherwise, you just go all over the place.
It's a faucet. Once you turn it on, it just goes.
Yeah. Broke the handle off, and
that's right.
Game over. Yeah.
So, Nick, do we have any housekeeping before we get into our episode today?
We have nothing because we just did a great big correspondence episode, which you will have listened to weeks before this.
That's right.
In terms of the timeline.
I'm still here, though.
Oh, Mary.
I'm
really?
sitting in the corner.
Okay. Well, as long as Omen refills your fish head bucket, you're fine, right?
I like to suck the eyes out.
I know. It's a special treat. I get it. It's
really, really unnerving, just the slurping sounds coming from the corner.
Oh, gosh. We don't have any correspondence. We don't have any housekeeping. But we have yet to talk overall about the art on this album. We've talked bits and pieces.
Indeed. Yeah, we've been referencing it, as we've gone along, but we haven't taken the bird's eye view.
So let's finally listen to a discussion with our art correspondent, Jesse Winter, for Dogs in Midwinter. Sleeping with the Dogs in Midwinter. I don't remember what we call it.
Sleeping in the Dogs with Midwinter. No, Sleeping with the Dogs in Midwinter.
There it is.
Sleeping with the dogs in the midwinter.
Hello, Tull aficionados. It's Jesse Winter. I'm zooming in from Long Island City, New York. It's a cold Sunday morning. Looking at the cover for Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die, released in 1976 in May in the U.S. And I was 12 months old, just about to turn 1 at the time. The illustration and the art direction for this cover art is kind of loosely inspired from what it looks like by the underground comics from the 60s and 70s. And they employed an artist named David Gibbons, who was a British underground comic artist at that time, to render the vision of Ian Anderson as some alter ego, washed up rock artist by the name of Ray Lomas. But to talk about a little bit the inspiration from artists like R. Crumb, Spain Rodriguez, who were popular at the time, who were doing cover art for Janis Joplin and The Who, Quadrophenia.
So they were jumping on this bandwagon. This was already a somewhat established.
This was already happening. Yeah, the Big Brother and the Holding Company, I think, was another one. There's a couple famous album covers, and so they were probably inspired and had some reference from that and took their own turn at this. You know, for the underground comics, they were mostly bought in like adult magazine and bookshops. And this is, of course, we have to remember in the 1970s and the 60s, there was no internet. People were consuming comic books of all types of subject matter and in many cases, you know, deviating into more risque sort of ideas and subject. For Ian Anderson, from self-consciousness of his career at that time, even though he was very young, he already had the commercial success and now was entering the phase of like his music was not necessarily the freshest, most popular. You know, it wasn't the fad, and that the fads come and go, but fads always come back. So it's a yellow cover with sort of a purplish blue rather than a black, almost dark tone to the line work and the shadows and stuff.
So because the reference to the underground comics that you're saying, is that why we see him ogling the woman's breasts and picking up super young girls? Is that kind of inspired by that or an homage to that, because it's meant to be on the darker, kind of skeevier side?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this is an adult-inspired comic, adult situations, adult types of interactions.
So you said what this art is kind of inspired by, like R. Crumb and those other artists. Who did this? Who's the artist for this? I don't think we covered that yet.
So the artist for this is David Gibbons.
Okay.
He was a British artist, and he was young at that time, and he was doing underground comics. And his earliest published work, not long before he did this commission, was called The Trials of Nasty Tales. And continuing in Cosmic Comics, produced by a publisher named Felix Dennis. This is not. It's for those who love old underground comics. There's a whole world of culture and community around this, and of course this artist went on to start to work in DC Comics and did The Watchmen and had a very prolific career, and is still alive today. I think it says that he's 71 years old. He's still working. It runs up to 2018. He was appointed the UK's first comics laureate to act as an ambassador for comic books and their potential to improve literacy.
What a sweeping path he's taken from dirty underground comics to the very first comics laureate.
Absolutely, and it's he's doing good service with this his life at this point, and using comics to further promote and improve literacy for people. Well, I talked to a friend of mine who's an illustrator who knows a lot of the references that would help me kind of understand where this was coming from. And this was a very this was not an original necessarily. I mean, for the album on its own in the Jethro Tull catalog, it was original, but in the larger body of works that were being made, you know, comics were in people's life at that time. So what I could basically understand was that there was a style to the comic work that, you know, they kind of, I guess it mirrored, it kind of reflected a bit of the R. Crumb style and Spain Rodriguez. R. Crumb had done a Janis Joplin cover that was very popular at that time. But I think for the idea that they were working with this rock opera and this character and this story, when they came to the decision of like, well, are we going to photograph this? Are we going to use an illustration? Are we going to? They must have had, you know, there must have been a creative meeting where it was like, well, why don't we just do a comic book and a strip comic strip out of this and make it an adult cartoon comic book. The Janis Joplin cover is the Cheap Thrills, Big Brother and the Holding Company. That's a well-known cover. It's definitely not an album that you just kind of look at as its own like little art piece. It's actually a whole information little storybook piece that lives on its own, much like they would do. I mean, the album cover and the album art could be taken to this next level, and Tull is pretty well known for doing that, and in some cases probably spending more time on the album cover than maybe even making the music.
As we know from Thick as a Brick, but it's a mixed multimedia piece.
It really is. And for them, the solution for furthering whatever they're expressing here had to be in some sort of drawing comic strip format with a story and a pseudo alter ego character, of course.
Thinly veiled, like much of Ian's work is.
Yes. Yeah, it's all about him, and yet it's not.
Right.
So.
Like, how dare you? How dare you assume it was me?
I wasn't looking in the mirror. I mean, I could only imagine the fear of the young rocker seeing punk music coming up and seeing the changes in music that were happening so fast, and wondering if people were going to keep coming to their shows. Like, how do they keep up with the trends and the times if there's just so much new stuff and fads going around? So.
And as we see from the next album, they didn't jump on that train at all. They went their completely different way.
I think he decided it was time to just stay true himself and go with his trajectory. I would also think that from a sales point of view, if I was to be walking down the record store aisle and caught my eye on this cover, I would definitely be drawn into this. Like, what is this? It's not abstract on any level. The name is there, the brand is there. I'm getting a little sense of the vibe, the kind of funky, a little more rocky kind of vibe of this the music in here.
And if you don't know the story, if you're seeing this album for the very first time, you look at this cover, this rock star punching out of the album, and say, oh, this is Ian Anderson. You don't say, oh, this is Ray Lomas, until you pick it up and open up and look on the inside. So, I mean, there's clearly reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and there's layering, and there's like a little bit of, curiosity gets kind of peaked up. Of course, this Ray Lomas character on the front is suggestingly giving the bird to whoever this audience is. Even though there's no middle finger up, it's that the rebel, go it alone sort of type.
Buy this or don't, I don't care.
Yeah. you can F off.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's also very in celebration of the punk sort of attitude of punk music and the punk etiquette. There is that rejection of commercial popular appeal of everything. And I've even listened to an interview with Ian Anderson where he talks about the spirit of punk behind the spirit of punk in what they were doing, because of that what they were doing was on its own, for its own, without any commercial value. There are some really profound insights into the way that I saw him kind of talking about Jethro Tull as really being a punk band. It happened to have big concerts with lots of people, but they were always kind of rejecting the norm and trying to go against whatever the mainstream was. And they did that, and yet they were able to do that and cross over.
Now, yeah, I never do the rock and roll.
So amazing. As Omen, you have alluded to over the past weeks, the art was tied into the songs, and that's great. That's awesome. But it's also great to see it as a whole piece and understand the process behind it as well.
Yeah, and it does make me, Nick, nostalgic for the days of that I never experienced, where when you bought a piece of music artwork, an album, you would get all this actual artwork,
Yeah,
physical assets that would go with it. physical media.
Yeah, I was going to say buying music was more than just buying the music at that point. You know, there was more to it. There was more that the music producer could add.
I have such a visceral memory of finding an album. I'm sure everyone who hears this will get so mad at me for misremembering it, but I think it's maybe a Rolling Stones album, and the front of it is a close-up shot of the crotch, the bejeaned crotch of one of the band members, and there's an actual zipper built in to the album cover that you can unzip the jeans on.
And were you ever brave enough to unzip the jeans?
Yes, immediately. Are you kidding?
What was under there?
I don't think there was anything. It was just you could unzip it. You could have the experience of unzipping the jeans of sexy band member X.
It was Rolling Stones. It was the album Sticky Fingers. And it was, in fact, Mick Jagger's crotch.
Pants. I have unzipped them. Amazing.
Yes.
And my fingers were sticky.
Yeah. And it was designed by Andy Warhol.
Oh, Andy Warhol. What a lovely creature.
Yeah. That is a perfect description of Andy Warhol.
He was too good for this world.
He was Bowie levels of strange and wonderful and perfect.
So with the art out of the way, finally, can we talk about the music of the song that we are listening to this week, which is, Nick?
Oh my gosh, it is the last song off of the album proper. It is track 10, The Checkered Flag, Dead or Alive.
Let's get hydrated and have a listen.
Omen, you asked me before we started recording if I had listened to this song on my really good headphones.
Yes.
And I said no, I was looking forward to it.
So having done that, yeah.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to make a requirement for our listeners at this point. You're clearly dedicated to Tull. You're clearly dedicated to this podcast, and we appreciate that. You need to take the next step and get some really good headphones and just sit down and listen to these songs. Close your eyes and just listen to the song for what it is.
Get in your isolation bath. Remove all physical sensations from your body.
This song, like the last couple songs, we've been blown away musically.
Now, it's worth remembering, Nick, that in the old days, the equivalent to a good pair of headphones was a good hi-fi stereo system.
Yes, right.
That would actually literally bathe you in the sounds of the music. And that's something that our generation doesn't have as often as I think.
No.
It's not as highly valued, I think, as it was in previous generations. And I wish I had access to one of those systems for this song specifically, because I think it would cure any disease that could make its way into my body.
Yeah, sound waves. Yeah, this song, I would put it on. Ray and I have a playlist on Spotify. They're called Zone Out songs. They're songs that if you get good enough cup headphones and you just close your eyes and you could get swept away in the music.
Yeah,
this is definitely a Zone Out song. It is. Woof.
I've listened to this song maybe 4 times in the last 24 hours, and each time I have physically gotten goosebumps and chills all over my body. All over my body, Nick.
Everywhere. Pick a spot. Goosebumps were there.
It's intense. This song is really incredible.
Yeah. We're talking just musically right now, but lyrically, I'm not as disappointed as I have been the last couple of songs. Musically,
Let's break it down musically. This song starts out with a sound that I don't usually associate with Tull, which is the organ coming forward right at the top.
Yeah, it's like a weird synth setting.
I think it's I think it's pre-actual synth, but it's on that kind of soulful organ, and I think there's a little bit of blending with the bass and the guitar and the strings right off the bat. It's this incredibly well-blended cocktail of instruments that after that first sip, you are just tune drunk.
Yeah, the electric guitar coming through on some sort of filter pedal something.
Yeah.
Very quickly, you said those strings roll in, and behind those strings, you definitely can hear the cello. This low rumble feel. Oh my gosh. It's got a very
incredible.
Bowie sound to me, an early Bowie sound, I think.
Yeah.
But gosh darn it, musically, this song, and then it continues at this kind of begrudging and trudging pace to get through. And it's a hell of a send-off for a musical.
Yeah. You know, another thing to note early on here, I believe that some of the chords they're using are, and people more musically savvy can correct us later, suspended chords. So they are chords which are constructed of notes where they don't resolve within themselves. So they're chords that create a lot of tension just within themselves. And that's what creates that feeling of like, you know, the feeling that when you listen to this song and it feels like your heart's being torn out?
For many reasons, yes, but that, yeah.
That's one of the things that it's coming from, is that those chords that have notes that are purposefully unresolved within themselves.
Yeah.
So then Ian starts singing. Once we get into the verse proper, we have John Evan doing these pretty incredible arpeggios all the way throughout.
Okay.
You know, where he's just kind of running up and down these scales within the chords behind Ian's voice.
Yeah.
Creating this kind of, you know, this a feeling that I would say is like wind blown. You know, you're standing on the cliff overlooking the sea, and the wind is just whipping around you, and you're just like, existence.
Yes. Screaming into the depths. Yeah.
Yeah. Screaming into the pink void.
What?
Oh, that's it's not.
Sounds a lot better than I expected, actually.
Never heard it called that before. What else can we say musically, Nick?
It all comes in relatively early. There not much
Yeah.
is added in steps, like we're kind of accustomed to with Tull, at least in the last couple of pieces.
It's almost a bit backwards in that respect,
They kind of fall off as they go. Is that what you're saying?
in that it starts all together, and then a little bit later on we start to hear things pulled out more individually.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of a new take, and it fits very well. I think the whole, taken as the ending of this full piece, you do want everything all together because it is the culmination of everything.
Yeah, in terms of the album.
We've heard all of these instruments, we've heard all of these songs, it's everything together. So if we've heard X number of songs that start piece by piece by piece by piece, I think it really adds to the denouement, the ending feeling of everybody just go.
It signals your brain, it signals your ears that this is now something different.
Yes. Yeah.
Keeping on kind of the construction musically of it, I think it's really worth dissecting these verses, because the chorus is kind of built into the verse structurally here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And musically, we start out with this very like almost surrendered feeling, this do 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 do, and then halfway through there's a chord change and it drops down to the other thing. You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
The hard road sand, the wine gone sand.
And then it builds up to that, so isn't it grand to be? And it goes through this progression of of feeling increasingly defiant almost. It sets the scene in this very, suspended musical field, and then the end of it rises up out of that to this more standard chords that feel like a defiance to all this, and then it falls back down into the beginning for the next verse.
Yeah,
That was spectacularly poorly explained on my part.
it's got this cyclical feel to it, despite the fact that it's the end of something. And it's the end, and it's weird. It's like it's cyclical, but it also feels final.
Well, if we start to tiptoe into some of the central imagery of this.
Yeah, let's do that.
If we talk about the checkered flag, that is, the image is clearly being pulled from the imagery of racing.
Yeah.
Track racing, in which you race around a track and you end where you began.
Right. So it is that there's that cyclical right there.
Absolutely. And the checkered flag is waved when the winner crosses the finish line, which is also the start line.
When when the race is officially done, when the first car crosses that finish line. Yeah.
Yeah, when first place is taken. Exactly. So in that sense, I think you're spot on, and I think that there is some intentionality built into that cyclical nature of it.
Yeah. But there's also definitely a bittersweet feeling to the whole thing as we get particularly further on into that third verse, but the whole thing is like it's slightly mournful.
It is. I mean, I have never been a race car driver.
I can attest to that. Yeah.
But I have watched some videos of race car drivers. I have watched a lot of the Trofeo Abarth.
Yes, you have.
Which is where they race souped up Fiat Abarths in Italy. Which is really, really great fun. And there is this incredible tension that's built up as the cars go around the track. And there's a certain amount of release that happens when the race is over, when the cars start to cross. And I always feel it's always like, you build up the tension, who's going to win, and then you win. And it's like when you listen to a horse race announcer, the energy just fades out of their voice so fast, and it's like, I kind of want to be back in that excitement.
Sure. You do it for the adrenaline, even if you're just watching and you're really into it. You're doing it for adrenaline. It's as much the experience, the journey, as it is the destination.
Absolutely. You don't watch a race to see
a car cross a line.
Marco Frenicelli blast champagne out of a bottle on the trophy stand. You watch to see the race. And so as soon as it's done, you're like, well, what's the next race? What's the next thing?
Yeah. And the finality, particularly here in the context of the musical, in the context of Ray, is that there may not be another race here.
So why don't we jump into the lyrics then?
Yeah, it's the lyrics. It feels very much like your friend and mine, Alanis Morissette's "Ironic."
Yes, I've been meaning to write to her. How is she?
She seems pretty good. I mean, she's COVID okay, which is
hey, that's the most important thing these days.
Yeah. It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride when you've already paid. It's the good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought? It figures.
It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride when you've already paid. It's the good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought it figures?
Yeah,
That is more poignant a little further on, but we'll get there.
right. I think, the main thing that we're dealing with in terms of the checkered flag is that it is the race that we're talking about is the race of life.
Yes.
The checkered flag is the end of life in a way.
Yeah. Which we saw the potential end 2 songs ago.
Right.
But this is more this you survived that car crash for what? To live a couple of more years. This is your victory lap.
Right. Exactly. But the sense of it is totally different because in that context, he crashed in the race. In this one, he's finishing the race somehow, whatever the difference of those things mean. And I think it's really in the context of a person's life, it's a mindset. It's like, are you in control or are you out of control? Are you out of control and just crashing because you messed up? Or are you in control and this was your goal and here you are and you can take a moment to really savor the moment?
Yeah.
Because the checkered flag, literally when you're watching a race, you drive past it, you barely even see it. It's checkered so you can see it more clearly. And it's a split second and it's gone. So, I mean, focusing on the image of the checkered flag itself is really, for me, I think, zoning in and appreciating that moment in time.
That one moment that is gone in an instant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into some of the specifics?
Yeah.
The disc brakes drag. The checkered flag sweeps across the oil-slick track. The young man's home, dry as a bone. His helmet off, he waves. The crowd waves back. 1 lap victory roll. Gladiator soul.
Gladiator soul. That's one
I'm
of
sorry.
my favorite things that he does. Really, in any Tull song, it tickles me so much, that little bit.
1 lap victory roll, a gladiator soul.
Also probably the inspiration for the song that came out recently, Body Yaddy 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 Yaddy.
That's what I would have thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Yaddy 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 yaddy.
Again, the victory lap is like once more around the track just for fun, just to appreciate it, just to linger in that moment.
I'm the winner, yeah. It's so everyone can acknowledge you, and it's basically, it's an ovation. It's a curtain call.
Oh, that's a great way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
And the taker of the day in winning has to say, isn't it grand to be playing to the stand, dead or alive?
The taker of the day in winning has to say, isn't it grand to be playing to the stand, dead or alive?
Now, Nick, I must confess that until I looked at these lyrics, when I listened to this as a youth, I always thought it was, isn't it grand to be playing in the sand?
Yes, yeah, I did too. I 100% did too, yeah. Which gladiators were in the sand.
Indeed, the word arena means sand.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, sand in Spanish is arena.
Oh, I did not know that. That's fascinating.
Because an arena is filled with sand.
Correct.
Boom.
Yes, just a little knowledge for everyone there.
Dropping the knowledge.
So the first verse is he's crossed the track, he's crossed the finish line, he's taking his victory lap. Then we get into that continuous, that basically the chorus of the song. Yeah. Isn't it grand to be playing to the stand, dead or alive? What do we make of that? The dead or alive part.
I know. I was going to say that I think that this verse is the most clearly related to the journey of Ray, because he's made it. He's come back into doing what he loves. He's having this resurgence of fame, and so he's taking his victory lap in a way. He's playing to the stand. He's playing he's in relationship with the public. Mm-hmm. Dead or alive?
Because how do you do anything when you're dead? How do you play to the stand when you're dead? Is that a reference to a legacy?
I think that it does have something to do. What I am taking from it in relating it directly to Ray is, it's better to do what you love even if you die trying.
Even if it kills you?
Yeah. Like, be true to yourself, and then dead or alive, you've won.
In your final moments, you at least did what you enjoyed doing.
Right.
Okay. All right. I got you there.
I also think that maybe there is the implication, I think I'm probably reading too much into this, but I think that perhaps there's the implication that at any moment you could be either alive or dead.
Okay, yeah, right. I think we saw a little bit of a reference to that earlier on. So spend your time doing what you want to do.
Right? Play to the stand, as it were.
Yeah.
Also, Nick, do you think that there's any implication of the flag being checkered? Is there a little wordplay in terms of the other definition of checkered, as in a checkered past?
Yeah, meaning slightly shady, slightly...
That life isn't clean, in a way.
Yeah, right.
It's not the red flag of victory, it's not the white flag of surrender, it's the mixed flag that says, you did the thing. How you did it, the flag isn't there to judge. It's that you did it.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. You still earned the flag.
Right.
That's interesting. I like that too. Yeah.
So then with the second verse, it starts to get, I think, deeper and more probably difficult to analyze on a word-for-word basis. But the sunlight streaks through the curtain cracks, touches the old man where he sleeps. The nurse brings up a cup of tea, 2 biscuits, and the morning paper mystery. The hard roads end. The white godsend is nearer every day. In dying, the old man says, isn't it grand?
The sunlight streaks through the curtain cracks, touches the old man where he sleeps. The nurse brings a cup of tea, 2 biscuits, and the morning paper mystery. The hard road end, the white godsend is nearer every day. In dying, the old man says, isn't it grand to be laying to the stand, dead or alive?
We're getting less allegorical here. This feels like this is a glimpse into Ray's future. This is his Christmas Carol moment where he gets a glimpse of what life will be like. And it gives you that idea of kind of, this is why you came back from the dead, ? Like, is this really what you came back for? Would it have been more valuable to you as a person, to you as a legacy, to have died doing what you enjoyed doing? Because laying in bed with a nurse bringing you 2 biscuits and a cup of tea, that's not necessarily living that rock and roll legacy.
But I don't see this verse as being a negative commentary on the image.
No.
Especially because it says the sunlight streaks. It's not saying the old man lays there in darkness. It's,
True.
Even though he's old, and maybe the most exciting thing that happens is that he gets brought the morning paper, he's still being touched by the sunlight. And therefore he is alive.
Okay.
And isn't that itself grand?
Okay. So you took a much more positive tack there. I expected this to be the dead portion of the dead or alive, as opposed to that first verse, which is the alive portion of the dead or alive, And
I'm wondering if, there might be, that it's not so much like, here's this part and it's not like a black and white cookie, a half moon cookie. Those are things we eat in America, where half the cookie's black and half the cookie's white. They are delicious. But I wonder if it's more saying, the state of knowing that at any moment you could die, then you should savor everything that is in front of you. It almost makes me think of grace. Hello, bird. Hello, sun. Hello, breakfast. Can I buy you again tomorrow?
May I buy you again tomorrow?
It's the old man saying, "Oh, here are my biscuits and tea. I am still alive." Yeah.
Yeah. I still get the opportunity to have biscuits and tea.
Right.
Okay.
But then in the third verse, it becomes even more difficult.
This is where Alanis Morissette comes into play here.
Yeah.
This is where
I was
the
wondering
irony.
when that would happen. Oh, yes, here we
Yeah.
are.
The irony.
And isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
The stillborn child can't feel the rain as the checkered flag falls once again.
The stillborn child can't feel the rain as the checkered flag falls once again.
That almost makes me feel like the checkered flag is like the Grim Reaper's scythe. It takes another life because the child was born dead and so can't even feel the pain of the world around it.
Oh.
And so, poof, there's the checkered flag one more time. The race, that was a short race.
Yeah, I took that as the stillborn child will, like, someone's going to win regardless. This child doesn't even get a chance.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Or is it that each life is its own race and we all win in the end
Just by dying.
just by dying? It's like,
Oh.
you did it. You did a life.
Great. Good
Even if-
job.
if your life was 1 second long,
Yeah, you still passed that finish line.
that was your journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the deaf composer completes his final score. He'll never hear the sweet encore.
The deaf composer completes his final score. He'll never hear his sweet encore.
That reminds me of an anecdote I heard about Beethoven.
Yes.
Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, was that it?
No. The anecdote is that, as is commonly known, he was going deaf in his later life, but he was
Yes.
still composing.
Mhm.
And because he had such a familiarity with the piano, he could imagine the notes in his head, even though he couldn't hear them.
Yeah.
And he would still conduct, even though,
Oh.
maybe that's not a great idea.
Yeah.
And at one point, he composed one of his big last symphonies, and so he presented it at some huge concert hall, and it was a big deal. And he conducted it, facing the orchestra, of course. And he didn't know, he was nervous about how it would go over, and so he conducted it, and full of passion, and got to the final note and cut it off, and the theater, the auditorium was silent, and he thought, oh, they hated it. The audience didn't like it at all. And finally, one of the violinists was like, Beethoven, turn around. And he turned around, and the audience was just like in a full standing ovation, and he just couldn't hear it. And it was that moment of like, and I think they say that he broke down crying in that moment because he realized A, how profound his deafness really was, and B, how much his work was actually appreciated.
That is ironic.
Isn't it ironic?
That's beautiful and tragic.
Just a bit.
Could be apocryphal, who knows, but it's a good story.
You know, I think my favorite stories are apocryphal.
They are the best, aren't they?
They really are. None of those pesky facts get in the way of my enjoyment of them.
Yeah, the checkered flag, the bull's red rag, the lemming-hearted hordes running ever faster to the shore singing, isn't it grand to be playing to the stand, dead or alive?
The checkered flag, the bull's red rag, the lemming-hearted hordes running ever faster to the shore, singing, isn't it grand to be playing to the stand, dead or alive?
make of those last lines, Nick?
We are moving ever onward to our end, some more destructive and more suicidal and ending sooner than later than others. But we're eventually all getting there, running to the shore, running to that apocryphal story of lemmings running off of cliffs, which is just
Right.
not true.
Right. The idea being that if one lemming does it by accident, all the others are like, well, I guess that's what we're doing now. We should all do it.
Yeah. And then also the checkered flag, the bull's red rag. That's
Yeah.
like, for some people, seeing the checkered flag at the end could infuriate them.
It's like it's egging them on.
Yeah.
So then the question is the checkered flag literally death, or is it the goal of the end, our ultimate goal?
But is it not the same thing, given that
Right.
that maybe the race is the aspect of reaching your end, whatever that may be?
I don't know that I know what this song is about, Nick, but it does make me think, wow, what is my goal for the very, when I'm an old man sitting with my biscuits and tea, what do I want to be looking back on?
What is your checkered flag? Yeah.
What is my checkered flag?
Yeah, I thought I knew what this song was about.
Playing in the sand.
And then you and I started talking about it.
That often happens.
Yeah.
Our perspective on the songs almost always shifts, not necessarily always in the direction of more clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh.
I want to go to something musical. You kind of pointed it out with Gladiator Soul.
Uh-huh.
But that is a musical motif that gets echoed by the strings
Yeah,
at various points. And it's just real pretty.
it is. It is real pretty.
Falls once again.
This song also reminds me of, do you know the Clancy brothers?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
They were an Irish group. I think they mostly played in the United States, maybe, actually, but they have a song called Isn't It Grand, Boys, to Be Bloody Well Dead.
Ah.
Have you heard that one?
No.
Look at the coffin with golden handles. Isn't it grand, boys, to be bloody well dead? Let's not have a sniffle, let's have a bloody good cry. And always remember, the longer you live, the sooner you bloody well die.
Look at the coffin with golden handles. Isn't it grand, boys, to be bloody well dead? Let's not have a sniffle, let's have a bloody good cry. And always remember, the longer you live, the sooner you'll bloody well die.
Yeah. I wonder if that was an inspiration,
I don't know if that exact song is, but I feel like the sentiment is a little bit. It's like, it's that weird kind of Celtic, half morbid, half hopeful.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's going to happen eventually, so you might as well accept and embrace it. Well, accept, not even necessarily embrace.
I think you're onto it right there. I think that you may have just unlocked it. It's like you're going to finish the race eventually.
Yeah.
So you may finish it with an appreciation for what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And do your best to do it under your terms. Not death exactly, but life.
Yeah. There is a lot out of your control. So what is in your control, take advantage of it. Grab it.
And that which is out of your control, appreciate the beauty of it, whether it's the sunlight streaking through the curtains or, the fact that you get to compose, that you've been given the time to compose one more thing.
Or be a non-washed up greaser rock star.
A partially washed up, partially washed rock star.
Partially greasy rock star. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the best that we got.
I am going to wave the checkered flag on this discussion of this song, Nick.
Yeah, I would love to hear everyone else's theories on this. But I don't think we can get any more. It is pretty. I didn't think it was opaque, but it feels pretty opaque. I think there are too many potential divergent paths.
Nick, sometimes we categorize songs for our own kind of benefit, and I would put this into the mysteries of life category, the mysteries of existence category.
Yeah, that works. I'm good with that. Yeah.
It is truly one of the most beautifully composed songs from Tull up to date.
It is beautiful in its grandeur. Later on, some of the really beautiful stuff is because it's so simple and beautiful, but this is so big and sweeping and grand, and I think that's one of the reasons I like this one.
I want to pour this song into the bath and get into it.
Climb right in with a glass of white Zinfandel and a teak wood scented candle.
Yeah.
Wow. This is the end of Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die proper.
Yeah.
What have you learned about or from this album, Omen?
Oof. I would say that I disagree with what Rolling Stone had to say, which is that Ian Anderson is not a good storyteller.
Yep.
I would say that perhaps musical theater is not the best format for his storytelling.
Yes.
Because I think that the storytelling within the songs is incredible.
Yeah.
Especially as we'll start to see later on. But overall, it's not a concept exactly, but it's difficult for me to imagine this album as a musical that really works on stage. And maybe I'm just not thinking creatively enough, but I think that there are dramaturgically, if you will, some structural problems with it.
I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
But musically, this is the best composition that we've seen from Ian and the band and Lee Palmer to date. Mm-hmm. Hands down. Flutes down.
Flutes down. Everybody flutes down. And so...
The test is over.
Any new favorite songs? Any new appreciation?
What?
Any new favorite song to come out of really listening to this stuff in depth? Any new appreciation that you didn't have before?
I definitely have a new appreciation for Checkered Flag. I have not listened to it so closely.
Yeah.
I am still really excited about what I believe is our next song, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, which is one of the bonus tracks, A Small Cigar.
Yep, Small Cigars next week.
It's literally one of my favorite Jethro songs ever.
I know you love this song so much.
I don't know why even, but we'll talk about it next week.
I can't wait to hear why you do.
I
can't wait for you to figure out why you do and then tell me why.
I'll be in touch with my therapist and I'll get back to you. What
Wow.
does the cigar remind you of? A small cigar, you say?
Does it make you feel acceptable? Do you want it in your mouth?
Save it for next week.
Dr. Freud, please.
Dr. Freud, put your pants on. Until next week, before your checkered flag falls, you can gain first prize in our race by writing a positive review or a 5-star rating for our podcast and telling your friends.
Once you leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, you can shake up a bottle of champagne and spray it all over yourself in victory.
That's right. Take a victory lap around the comment section of YouTube and tell everyone to go check out Talk Tull to Me, the podcast for Tull Skulls.
Until next week, I am the sun-dappled, liver-spotted old man, Nick McGill.
I am the 1.4-liter turbocharged Italian engine, Omen Sade.
We are one cup of tea and one pair of biscuits away from death, feckless Momes.
And this is the symphony that we will never hear. Talk Tull to Me.
Margaret. Margaret.
I'm here, Father. I'm here. What? The nurse told me that you didn't have long. What?
Margaret.
What is it?
I feel my time is coming to a close.
Oh, Father.
And there are some things that I need to confess before I go.
Oh, what is it, Father? Tell me. Tell me. Here, take my hand.
Margaret.
Yes.
Do you remember your dog, Clancy?
Of course, the one who died in that terrible fire?
That's right. And do you remember it happened right around Christmas, and we had such a good feast that year?
Of course, it brought such good feelings to me after the tragedy.
That's right. Well, girl, I have to tell you, you know what dog tastes like.
Oh, Clancy! Clancy, you're so delicious.
Margaret.
Oh, what is it, Father?
I see the light. I see the light.
Father,
Wait,
stay with me, please.
I'm coming to you, Bessie. I'm coming. Hang on. Margaret.
Yes,
I have to tell you, your mother, you are not her child.
What?
You're not my child either. We found you in a garbage can.
Oh, that's why I love garbage. Smell of garbage. Oh, God.
Margaret. Oh,
Father.
Bessie, I can feel you. I can feel your taste.
Who's
Margaret,
Bessie? Why are you talking about her?
Margaret, one final thing before I go.
Please, tell me.
I
Where's the gold buried?
I never left a review for Talk Told to Me, which, of course you know, is a proud member of the Feckless Momes audio
No! His life was wasted.